I am Dr. Reena Rani, Professor from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, School of Engineering and Information Technology, Sanskriti University, Mathura. Now, we are going to discuss about concepts of Internet. In the concepts of Internet, we are going to discuss about the introduction part, working details, and what are the modes of connections and Internet usages. There are various uses of the Internet: communication, social media, entertainment, education, shopping, work, banking and financial services, news and information, and research information access. So nowadays we know that Internet is used. Each and every person, more or less, it is used Internet. That now we are having what is Internet. So there is the connection of two words, that is inter and net. That is the interconnection of networks. That indicates that Internet, that is globally available network. It means whatever be the globally available, which is the network, we have to connect with the different devices which are available all around the world. So that is Internet. How it works? That works on the basis of these two protocols. Protocols are basically set of rules that are the TCP and IP. TCP is Transmission Control Protocol and IP is Internet Protocol. Now the working details of protocol. Sometimes we have to use, either we have to send any text message, or we have to send an email, or we have to connect with any user with the help of interconnection of this telephone wires or any kind of internet we have to use in our daily life with the help of this internet. Now we have to send either a text message, voice message, audio, video, or any kind of information we have to send with a distant user which is not nearby us, which is at the farther about. Then how we have to connect with the user. So that is how Internet works. Now the working details of Internet. This is the entire scenario what happens when we have to send any kind of message into the Internet. What happens? First is switch and router. Switch and router, through which we have to connect with the different devices. If we have to connect different devices with the help of switch, and the router through which we have to connect different networks, that is the switch and router, through which we have to connect with the internet service provider. If we have to enter any kind of web address over the URL, then we have to identify the internet services. So internet, when there is a complete message which is needed to be broken into the tinier parts or smaller parts, through which we have to identify what is the sender, we have to send a correct message and correct transmission of the message, that a correct user it should be placed, and there is the requirement of broken into the complete block of the message, broken into the smaller blocks or smaller parts. So it all that is happens with the help of internet protocol. Now the TCP, through which we have to connect transmission control protocol. It means when the sender have to use to send the message or transmit any kind of message, that must be received by the receiver point or destination point in a correct form. It must be reliable, it must be in shorter time of, it should not have to take time, it should not be delayed, and correct time at the very short of time it must be reached out. So it is done with the help of TCP and IP. Now the HTTP, that is the hypertext transfer protocol, through which we have to connect with the internet service provider. If any message or request is to be sent with the help of ISP, it means the HTTP or web browser, or we have to enter any kind of web address through which we have to connect with the HTTP, that is the hypertext transfer protocol, through which we have to connect complete reliable messages to be taken from the internet service provider. So this is the internet service provider through which we have to take or receive the request from user, and that there are the internet service provider has to send their request to the DSL or satellites, or it may be 3G, 4G and 5G. Now we are using 5G connections, modes of the connection through which we have to connect with the internet. So this is digital subscriber line through which we have to connect with the digital subscriber line. It means broadband connections is used to connect with the internet, and the satellite connections through which we have to also connect with the broader band through a satellite. We are using here satellite. Another mode of connection that are the now the new ages of the technology, 3G, 4G, 5G. Now we are using that modes of connection, that is the 5G over the mobile phones or tabs or internet which is available over the laptops. So we are using through the SIMs. So any kind of web address which is such a device, then device has to put a internet service protocol, that is internet service provider has to take the messages or data from the server, and then it has to be transferred to the user which is having a request. So all this is done with the help of this scenario. It means when we have to access any kind of message through the switch and routers, through we have to connect our device with the networks. And now we have to send any kind of web address through which we have to connect with the internet service provider, and internet service provider is basically done with the help of modes of connections in which we are taking any kind of request or we are taking any kind of data from the internet. So we have to take it from the server, and there are the modes of connection through which we have to connect with the networks, and at last we are the user or sender or receiver. There are the distant computers may be here, or any kind of mobile phones or pagers, different kinds of the devices we have to use. Now this is the short router and switches. Basically a router, that is here internet service provider has to provide the services. With the help of this router we have to connect the networks, and this is the switch through which we have to connect with the different devices. So switch and routers are the main key components of internet. Now the TCP and IP, these are the set of protocols we are using here. TCP, this is the transmission control protocol through which we have to identify the transmission. It means one of the sender and another one is the receiver. How this reliable communication is to be held. This is with the help of transmission control protocol. In a certain frame of time, in a certain without any kind of delay, we have to send the message from one port to another or sender to receiver. So all it can be done with the help of this TCP. Now the reliability of messages have an importance along with the correct message to be transferred at the correct destination. Now next one is internet protocol. In the internet protocol we have to identify that there is the server which is connected with the sender and receiver. The complete block of message to be converted into the tinier parts, that is the smaller parts of the message, that is to be broken at the sender end, and at the receiver end further it is collected, and correct form of the message whatever we have to send is to be collected at the receiver end. So it is done with the help of TCP and IP. Now what will happen if we have to access any kind of network through the web server? That is web address we have to type over the URL. So working of the internet is done with the help of this web server. Web address is to be typed. In the step 1 we have to connect with the device, that is through the modem or router. Modem is basically a combination of two words, that is the modem, it means modulator and demodulator, or along with the router we have to connect with the different networks which are available globally. Now together these devices allow to connect with the networks and all around the globe. So the router enables multiple computers to join the same network. Along with when the modem has to connect with the internet service provider, so the DSL or internet can be connected with the help of satellite connections or 3G, 4G, 5G connections we have to use. In the next step, that is, we have to type what any URL, that is the uniform resource locator. Uniform resource locator through which we have to identify any kind of web address like http www.sanskriti.edu.in. .edu are the domain name services. That indicates the edu indicates education, .in indicates the India, and Sanskriti University itself is the university through which we have to search the web address here. So we have to identify what kind of information we have to gain from the Sanskriti website, that is the URL here. Now, the browser looks like the IP address for domain name services, that are the DNS we have to use. That translates the text-based messages. We have to find any information through the web server. We have to enter any kind of address, web address, through which IP, which is a device dependent IP, that is the numerical identity of a particular device, is to be displayed. That is, for example, google.com becomes the IP address having this one. So we have to identify a particular address. So next step is 4, through which we have to browser and send HTTP transfer hypertext transfer protocol request to the target server to send a copy of website to the client using TCP and IP. So there are the messages which has to be identified by the that is the internet service provider has to take information from the client, or there is the any kind of internet service provider which are using a bulk of messages, and correct at the correct destination they have to provide with the help of HTTP. In the step 5, we are having the servers that are used to approve a particular request that is coming from the request server. And then step 6, that as the browser resembles the data packets to the websites and loads, allowing you to learn, shop, browse and engage. And now we have to search any kind of results, whatever we want to have. Now the components of internet. There are basic components of internet, which are the websites and web pages through which we have to identify any kind of URL. We have to enter the web address there, that is the uniform resource locator, through which HTTP hypertext transfer protocol, through which we have to identify what kind of message we are requesting for, and through the internet service provider we have to identify that particular message from the server. Now the servers and clients. The servers are the computers that stores and deliver the content of internet. So there is the big storage of the content which are having into the server. That is also a kind of computer through which we have to access the data. While the clients, such as your computer or smartphone, that are the clients we have to use. Request is to be shared among the internet service providers. So we are having a next component of the internet service provider, that are the protocols. Protocols are the set of rules that govern data exchange. That means how a set of rules has to be followed, and the most common protocol is HTTP, that is the hypertext transfer protocol used for web browsing, through which if HTTP is connected through the server, that delivers the message from the server to their clients. Now the IP addresses, that are the unique numerical identifiers assigned to each device on the internet, enabling them to be located and communicated with, through which we have to connect. Now, what are the modes of communicating through the internet? There are various modes which are used for the connection of internet. First is digital subscriber line. Then second one is dial-up connections. Third one is cable TV connection. And fourth is satellite. And fifth is 3G, 4G or current age of technology, that is the 5G. Now, what is DSL? That is, as the figure shows, the DSL, that is the digital subscriber line, through which a dedicated line of the phone calls we have to connect with the help of this DSL modem here, and we have to connect with the dedicated phone line which is connected with the DSL modem. So, through which we have to connect with the internet services. That is the broadband we are using here. Second one is dial-up connections. Then people which are uses to connect the dial-up connections through which we are using phone lines to connect from one to another, and then phone line has to be connected with the help of this modem, that is the modulator and demodulator has to connect with the device. So we have to connect with the internet through the dial-up connections. This is also use the broadband. Then next one is cable, that is cable TV connection. Cable TV connection in which we have to connect with the broadband services, it is also using the cable TV wire. Now, this is more or less we are using here to nowadays, that is cable TV wire, that uses the broadband technology, and we have not need to connect cable connections for that particular purpose. Now, the cable is considered as most of the accessible and faster than the dial-up and DSL connections that we have for connection, in which we are not having dedicated cable connections needed. It is not needed so. Now, next one is satellite. In the satellite connections, we are also accessing the internet through satellites. We are having transmitter and receiver at the point of receiver or transmitter through the satellites. We have to connect with the internet service provider with the help of the satellites. So, it is also used for, that is the broadband technology it is used, but without interacting with any cable connections. Here we are not using any cable connections here. So, there is a accessible, that is not accessible fancy, there can be any network disturbance if the weather is unstable or there is a problem, weather problems may be there may be any fog or any kind of rainy season, then their internet services get interrupted. So, it is not very much suitable. Now, 3G, 4G or 5G technology we are using for the phones. Mobile phones, now a new age technology we are using here for the connection of internet, that are the connects when wirelessly we are using here, that they are not considered as the stable as digital subscriber line, or they are using like cable TV connections, and there are the one problem, that is the data limitation problem, which are not available. It means there is the data limits for a particular kind of SIMs we are using, that is on each month we have to pay. Now, these are the internet usages. We have to use internet either in communication, social media, entertainment, education, shopping, work, banking and financial services, news and informations, research and information access. In communication, it means we have to send either emails or short messages or voice or video calls. We have to communicate with one to another. Now, the social media we have to use, connect with the peoples through the social media, and the websites which are using for the social media, that are the very much Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, which are the social media websites, and communication, which we have already discussed. Now, The next is entertainment. For any kind of streaming and gamings, we are having entertainment purpose. Either we have to use to watching the movies and shows, TV shows and videos through the platform of the Netflix, YouTube or Spotify. And the gamings we have to use playing online games. Internet can also be used for the education purpose. With the help of internet, we have to identify the various courses like Coursera, Neptel and YouTube, through which we have to identify the education. And then we have to learn more and more as per our conveniency of the topics, or as our requirement, we have to identify a certain topics over the internet. Now, the research can be done with the help of internet, that search engines we are using like Google to gather the information or explore academic databases. There are various resources of internet we are using here for the work also. Work, there is the remote work, we have to use various tools and various Slacks and Microsoft Teams, Google Workspace, through which we have to connect with the other users like Zoom and for the collaborative document. Job searches and freelance work, platforms like the LinkedIn, Indeed and Upwork. Now, banking and financial services. Banking and financial services also use the internet. Online banking, managing investments and using fintech apps like PayPal or Venmo, GPay, Paytm, Bheem app. These are the financial apps. News and information. For any kind of media or news informations, we have to identify with the help of internets. That accessing news websites, blogs, forums for latest updates and discussions. Now, research and information access. Research can be done with the help of this internet, that the search engines which are available, Google, Bing and other search engines, Mozilla, there are available for the. Now, the cloud services. When we are sending any kind of message, either it is voice message or it is audio or video messages or any kind of photographs, when we have to send it from one place to another place, and there is lots of big data, or we have to send any big data from one device to another device, then there is a big problem. Then how it can be solved? That is solved with the help of this cloud services. When we have to use any kind of cloud services, like that is based on the tools like Google Drive. Google Drive, there are unlimited of data we can share from one user to another user easily. When we have to send many of photographs in a single file, so we have to done with the help of this Google Drive, or lots of files which is not capable to deliver from one source to another with the help of just throwing emails, and we have to done with the help of this Google Drive. And Dropbox, through which lots of files can be accessed. iCloud, that allows the peoples to connect and to store and access the files from anywhere within an internet connection. It means from anywhere around, all around the world, we have to search and we have to share the data from one source to another source. So this is what an internet. It means when we have to connect with from one user to another user, or from the sender to receiver, we have to connect from any voice call or any kind of messages like audio messages, or we have to connect with the conferencing calls. All can be done with the help of internet. The internet is the vast now we are using. So there is not limited on only all these topics. There is very much vast. There is not it cannot be completed in a single lecture. We have to continue in another lectures and lecture series about the internets, because there are lots of protocols which are having to connect with the set of rules, and how these rules has to be followed, and how we have to connect from one user to another user. These are all internet protocols. It means that HTTP, that is the hypertext transfer protocol, FTP, that is the file transfer protocol, through which we have to identify that correct sender has to send a message, and a correct destination, whatever be the sent message to be delivered, that must be restored at the receiver point. And it must be in a correct form of message whatever we delivered. It must be assured. It means the reliable of the message collection at the destination point. Now, it is also having an importance that it must be communicated in a very short of time. It means in a nanoseconds we are trying to, now this is the evolving phase. In fact, it means there should not be any kind of communication lagging or delay should not be there. Delay must be minimized, and it must be in nanoseconds or milliseconds, but now it is in microseconds available. So we have to do it through the researches, that how this delay can be minimized. And in another phase, we have to identify safety of the data. Whatever we are accessing, it should not be hacked out. It should not be uh, uh, collected at unused user, which is not reliable to use a particular message. It should not be used by any unauthorized person. So it is there are various phases which are using by the internet. There are safety and security. So internet is not only limited for these topics, it can be explored more and more. Now, there is a internet which is used for various purposes. Either we have to go for the video transmission. So there are the lots of messages that are voice as well as for videographic images has to be combined and to be delivered from the one place to another place. That is done with the help of this internet. So all kind of services is to be done with the help of these internets. And safety and security purpose, if we are having safety and security of our messages, sometimes any unauthorized person has not to be access our messages, or whatever we are sending, or through the phone calls we are communicating, there are lots of messages which has to be secured. Suppose for the military purpose we are using internets, it must be encrypted message. It means we have to provide an encryptions there. It means there is a safety or security we have to done with the help of some coding of the message, and at the receiving end it must be decoded also, because there is a correct information we have to receive from the sender end to send correct message that has to be received at the receiver end. So there is a necessity of these kind of messages which are reliable along with the short as delay whatever be possible, and we are now using to minimization of these delays, and latency that must be reduced, and along with a particular message must be secured, and safety of that particular message, along with there is a lots of information which is being received, must be at the correct destination and correct form of the message. So there are lots of phases which are using in the internet all. Now, the client has to identify what are the network resources they are using, and a correct information has to be received. Then the internet service providers has to identify the large message files has to be stored. It is also being a challenging phase. through which we have to store many of the files, because worldwide we have to communicate from one user to another user. We have to store lots of data. Databases required to be stored there. So there is also a big communicating uh, tools which are using for a purpose to access lots of big data there. And internet service also provides the how the particular message to be accessed from the one user to another user. So we are having lots of messages, like internet can be used for any kind of message, that is either in the voice message, audio form, or that can be a video form, or any kind of short messages, or any kind of photos or JPEG files can be shared from one end to another end. So we are having this kind of internet facilities. There are various uses of internet. There are lots of internet purpose, how they have to communicate from one end to another end, and what are the protocols being used for this purpose, that are the used here, that are the internet. So in the next video, we will discuss about more over the internet. Thank you.